Okay, and we are live. So good morning, everyone. Today, Friday, the 1st of May. So it's the days are getting longer here in the UK, here in Europe, and I know they're getting shorter on the other side of the world. So for once, at least we got some nice sunshine to celebrate today here in London. Beautiful, beautiful sunrise this morning. And at the moment, is a glorious sunshine out there. So I'm keen to get this started and going so I can get out in the sunshine as well. Okay, and let's first let's go and have a look at the economic calendar first. So just give me a second. Okay, so let's start looking at the week, the announcements that we had for this week. I said it was quite a busy week this week in terms of economic announcements. In the end, they haven't influenced the market too much. We had the Japanese yen keeping the rates steady at 0.75%. On Tuesday, on then Wednesday, we had some numbers here for you guys in Australia, some inflation figures. Inflation now is a little bit lower than expected, but it's running at 4.6%. Okay, so expectation are that probably at the next monetary policy committee meeting, they probably raise interest rates again. The Canada again kept the rate steady at 2.25%, and the same in Europe, stayed at 2.15%. In the UK again, stayed at 3.75%, and US again was kept the rate steady at 3.75%. Okay. Also, we had inflation figures yesterday for the US, which is this one, the PCE price index, which is the favorite measure used by the Fed to set interest rates, which came in on as expected at 0.3% month on month. What else? And the GDP figures just slightly below expected, but still a very, very, very nice 2% on an annual basis. So the US economy at the moment is not showing sign of stress quite as yet, and this is why this is reflected as well in the stock market. Not too much going on today, so nothing much to expect from today. But it's there were lots of announcements of interest rates. So US. Europe, pound, yen, Canadian dollar. So most of the major currencies have announced the interest rates going forward. And we can see here on the left-hand side, we can see on the site that I am using, which is Forex Factory. We can see the central bank rates at the moment. As you can see, Australian dollar is the central bank that offers the highest interest rates for its currency, followed by the pound and the US dollar, and then we go the other currencies that are around the 2.25% mark, and follow the bottom two are the Japanese yen, which historically has been the lowest currency for many years now, though that place has been taken by the Swiss franc, which gives absolutely 0%. Because they can afford to. So well done, Eric, for living in Switzerland. It means that your money as well is not devaluing. So it's a strong currency compared to all the other ones. Okay. Very quick look as well at the job market. It was yesterday. Oh, come on. Sorry, I just cleared my cache, so I need to sign into everything again. Excuse me, just give me a second. I can't remember my email address. No, don't worry, I can sign into this, so we'll pass that. And I can't need to remember which email address I used to sign up for that service. Anyway, so in Cryptoland, what were we talking about? What were we talking about last week? We're talking about Bitcoin. Go to a daily chart, and okay, so we were talking about this point here. Okay, so at the moment that we are now broken through this resistance that we had since basically March 2024. You can see here this as it was resistance when you first got to that point, which was at like a 70,000 mark, which is not that far away from the high of 2021, by the way. And you can see when price came back to it, it provided a bottom, and price came back to it again, then it broke through and it offered again resistance as price tried to go back up. Now, that has been now won through as the price has comfortably moved above it. So we can now to remove that, but we can now see that we are fighting against the strong supply zone that was created during the drop from January to February of this year. And as I said to you last week, I wanted to see a closure above this point, above the 79,004. As you can see here, we touched it twice, Wednesday of last week, and we touched it again on Monday of this week, and then both times price was rejected. The second time a little bit strong, more strongly than the first time. Since then, so we went down to about 75. We're now back at 77. This move is still, at the moment, is still alive. But so we are in an uptrend in Bitcoin, but you can see, so there's nothing to be too happy about at the moment, because when we compare this move here, if I change the color, maybe a little bit clearer. Oh no, it's all the same color. Okay, never mind. So if we compare this move here, so when it got down here to the bottom, to the drop that we had from January to February, you can see that the drop is a lot stronger than the recovery. So far this recovery, it's been of a corrective nature. Okay, and really when we look at the way, if I remove all this, actually I'll make it slightly different. You can see, I'll show you the way I look at things when I'm considering prices. So this is the move from January, okay, as price went down. So the last point where the market during the drop corrected before dropping was this one here. So that was the last correction. This is why I've drawn a like a supply zone over here, because this is what is called in trading a controlling swing high, which means that it's the height of the last correction that we had as the price was going down. This is why it's creating opposition here. So to really open the way to say that this move, which at the moment is still technically in control, so we're still technically in a downtrend in Bitcoin until we break this point. So when we break this point and we close at least a daily, better even a weekly, at above this point, then we can say that this downtrend is terminated, and we're looking then at the other move in the other side to be the dominant one. So it's kind of like expectation of things to continue as they are, if there is enough strength to move that. So breaking that point, so really closing around 80,000 or above, will then open the way to, all the way to creating another up move. Where that could end up remains to be seen. But the first thing we can do is, it's calculated based on the. So we had sorry, the other way around. So if we're thinking about, so basically recovering this move, then a measure move would take us back to 135. Then kind of breaking this move and repeating on the other direction. So I'm saying at the moment I'm kind of cautiously optimistic, and I'll tell you what in cases like this, let's say this area that I have highlighted in red, it's fairly powerful. Okay, because we are on the daily chart on the last correction before a strong down move. So it's very powerful area. Now, so whenever there's an area like this, it's quite rare the price goes straight through it. Okay, so what normally happens is that they test it, like we see here, once and twice, before accumulating enough of a momentum to break through it. So when that gets tested, and we can see the first example of that being tested is actually this move here. Okay, I then go and have a look at the origin of that move as something to give, because it's kind of like you already needed quite a strong momentum to do that. So I'm thinking, at what price point did that come into force? Okay, and so you can see here I've created this area of a demand where price can retreat to before actually pushing forward. And it's already happened. It's already happened here as you can see, the price just touched at about just below 74,000 and already it moved back to actually test the edge of this area at just there's a 79.5. So I expect the next move, which could be the one that we already looking as, yesterday and today price is moving higher. At the moment we are, close to 77.5. It could already be that move that breaks through, or we might get another touch before we move higher. But I do expect this to be broken, and you can see as well by the two moves that we had in the other direction here. So this one, let's do it in blue. Okay, this one here and this one here haven't really been powerful moves. So they've been very, pretty much almost identical. Look at that. They've been almost identical moves, but not like these, not like the ones that we see on the left when price came down. So there isn't momentum at the moment on the downside. There is a little bit of weak momentum on the upside. And I see this a little bit of an inflection point, is where, basically the market is making up its mind. I feel that the moment we break this with a little bit of momentum, and we end up feeling comfortable on the other side of this area, then that will be the fuel that we need to actually move higher. But I've had the way I read this at the moment is like positive, encouraging signs. I know that there's a lot of people that talk about that, maybe this is just a correction before we go and create, the cycle low below the 60,000, which could happen. But I don't see at the moment any signs in the chart of this happening quite yet. Okay, so we'll see what the next few weeks bring us. But so far, the bigger decision we had this week was the interest rates announcements, both for the US dollar, and the yen, because the yen is seen as a kind of like free money almost to then invest in riskier investments, and an increase in the yen rate, the yen bank rate, could then have a negative effect on risk assets in general and crypto in particular. So this is what we see at the moment. We'll go and have a look at the ETFs which are seeing which have seen outflows this week. Let's go and have a look. Bitcoin ETFs. So we can see last week we had lots of money coming back in. 2, 5, 7, almost like one, close to $1 billion going in last week. This week we've had some money flowing back out, but we are pretty much like half the level that we had last week. So generally, if you take these 2 weeks in conjunction, as you can see, the green is still dominating. If you look at in general, the inflows and outflows, we've had some outflow this week, but it's still very much a green zone at the moment. Okay, let's have another look as well at Ethereum. Similar scenario, but just a bit more negative. Wasn't such a strong inflows last week, and this week has been all negative. Okay, but still, so you can see when you look at this chart here on the right, you can see then now where the Bitcoin chart is dominated by green, this is pretty much in equilibrium. Like green and red are very balanced at the moment. So there's nothing to say for Ethereum that kind of like will say that institutional flows will push in one direction or another. Let's have a quick look at the two smaller ETFs, like Solana. Really nothing going on this week. A little bit of outflows, but nothing major. XRP is got actually carried on again, pretty much neutral this week, but at least it didn't have any outflows, which is probably an outlier on all the other ETFs that we look at. So sometimes when there is something that goes against the tide, it's interesting to take note. So that's what we can say is that the last 2 weeks have been fairly positive, and you can see in this chart as well. It's like it's all green, just one day red, basically, which is yesterday. But the rest of the week has made up for that outflow. So basically this week has been neutral. Last week being majorly positive. So just to be noticed that there is some particular interest in XRP, even when money is flowing out of the other coins. Let's have another look as well at CryptoQuant. Oh, sorry, no, wrong one. And then ask me to sign in again. Realized price. So look at our friend, the realized price chart. So it's still pretty much like a little bit lower than it was last week, still hovering around the 54,000 mark. So again, I see this as maybe a good indicator where the bottom may be in this market. So generally within a 20% range of that, we find the market bottom. So 60,000 that we reached in February is within that range. So that could be the bottom that we see in this cycle, or it could be on the other side of that and then be in the mid 40s. it's difficult to say at the moment. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic at this stage, but I've been wrong many times, and I will be wrong many times again. So don't know what's going to be happening. Just a couple of things to share with you this week, and then I will go and get some general outlook for crypto, and get some question and answers we can discuss a little bit between us. Now, an interesting development. So this is Circle, which is the maker of USDC, has rolled out gas-free nano payments on mainnet across 11 different blockchains, including Ethereum, Polygon, Arbitrum, and others. So this will enable tiny payments of USDC, and they see it as like a kind of a technology that is needed to get AI agents basically to transact and do these kind of micro payments that wouldn't have been possible with gas fees. And so what they will do is similar to what the Bitcoin Lightning Network does. So the transactions are settled all together in a batch instead of being settled one by one. So they can just verify them, and then they accumulate them in a pool that gets verified at a later date. Okay. Now the other big news is the Clarity Act that is getting to the end of its Senate passage. And with as I said, there are expectation now that he will reach the final stage by the end of the summer. Now, this is what basically will build a federal framework for cryptocurrency and digital assets, and then also will determine who's responsible to oversee this sector, whether it's going to be the SEC responsibility or the Commodity and Futures Trading Commission. So at the moment, there's been like these agreements between lawmakers and also big players like Coinbase as well. But these hurdles seem to be getting towards the end. So the moment that we're going to have the Clarity Act voted into law, probably going to be the start of a very significant period for crypto, because now will be, the framework will be completely in place, and big players can then decide to get involved with Clarity, which they don't have at the moment. So this is probably the reason why lots of big players, talking about the Apple and the Google of this world, have just played on the fringe of the cryptocurrency industry so far, because they don't want to bet on their own technology. Same as when you remember the video recorders, and then the Betamax was a much better system, much better standard than VHS, but history thought differently, and the VHS is the standard that dominated the industry for many years. And this is just like another interesting article. We got the humanoid robot maker 1X is opening a new US factory and plans to produce 10,000 home robots in its first year. Now, I don't know if it's going to be exactly like this, like you see in this picture, or something similar, but the humanoid robots are going to be a big thing in the future, and especially in the personal care arena, because I know that there's so difficult now to find nurses and people that come and help you out in the home at reasonable prices nowadays, and once the productions are ramped up enough to make these things affordable, we will see them widely used in homes. I think this is something like of a technology that would be, not obviously as pervasive as the iPhone, but will be soon getting in that direction. that direction. I feel that opens, another lot of possibilities, and even for personal movement. We've seen already in China, you could go instead of as a tourist, instead of renting a scooter, you could rent a pair of legs. Literally, you can get an exoskeleton that you can wear, and it basically walks for you. You can walk, you can run, and do anything without any effort whatsoever. So this technology is here to stay, and it will make a lot of things possible that are not at the moment possible, and it will make a lot life easier for a lot of people as well. So interesting to see which format that will take, who will dominate, which would dominate the industry, and also what difference would it make in our interpersonal relationship going forward. It's still such a new new world that even like thinking about how it would show up in the future is a matter of it's a matter of discussion, and also of just seeing what happens when these products are available to the mass market. So I'm pretty much finished here with the things I had to share. So a little bit earlier than usual. But let's have a chat between us. And anybody has anything to share or they want to discuss on some clarity? And those of you at the bottom of the screen, if you could turn your cameras on as well, that would be great. At least we're not staring at blank screen.
So you think what is it, just sort of mixed with the markets at the moment? Just everything, some things are up, some things are down. It's just kind of chaos.
That's a good way to put it. I've got no idea what's going on, which is pretty
Well,
much nothing.
yeah, well, there isn't some rhyme and reason. I mean, we look at the GDP numbers in the States, and I know that because I've talked to some people over there, they're not worried about running out of petrol. I mean, we're by late May, early June, we're talking diesel and other stuff in this country is looking at not being here. So, I mean, forget about the cars. I mean, most of our products that stock stores goes by truck. So, you know, um, for us, you're getting down to that area where it's starting to get a little bit red. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. Um, and I
Yeah,
know they've been working on trying to get more stuff, and they've been juggling as far as they can juggle. But yeah. As long as the stupidity is going on, it's too bad that guy wasn't good. Knock him off at the engagement, the party that they had. Um, but yeah, that's anyway. So I don't know. It's yeah,
I mean, it is a serious concern for more reasons than one, because it's like we've seen, for example, for you guys, they're Australia, New Zealand, we can see that the kind of inflation is still biting quite hard. So you got inflation is getting almost like close to 5%,
yeah. Well,
at
I
the
know
moment.
New Zealand's still down at the 2.25. They're trying to do something to sort of stimulate what you can, but the only problem is if everything gets ground to a halt because and then where's the food shortages? Things come in and we can't move it off ships. I just think, in another month and a half, because it's just the 1st of May now, you got to ask.
No, no, definitely. So the problem
Yeah.
that we see in many countries as well is that they got very little maneuverability, and they want to try and control inflation. And by doing that and raising interest rates, it then causes the internal demand to collapse. I don't know if that by design or simply by not being able to control the economy, control the economy enough. But it's a problem now that would become real for many different countries, because um, the the weapons central banks are to control the economy are very crude. what they can do. They can play around with the money supply. They can they can play around with interest rates. Uh, but the point is, when there is something like this that happens, that's outside of any control. Like the oil, that it's used in so many things. As you say, in transport, production, energy. What can a central bank do to change the situation?
No, they
Now they
can't.
can stop people by making things more expensive, basically. They can stop people from buying them, but people are stopping anyway because they have to spend double the money on petrol anyway, if they can
Yeah,
find it. If they
yeah,
can find any, that is.
yeah, yeah.
So it's I know a lot of economies are stuck between a rock and a hard place. So that what would mean is that if this carries on in either the war or the blockade or anything else, it will mean higher inflation for a little while. So that will mean that even countries like the US that were lowering interest rates here in the UK will have to hold them higher for longer. And so there was like expectation of several cuts in the US this year. That now maybe if they start cutting again, it will be towards the end of the year now. So there's like less than a 40% chance of US cutting interest rates this year. Um,
Mm.
so it's a rapidly adapting world, and we'll see what will happen in the future. So if as you say, New Zealand and Australia, it's already happening, run out of oil, what then?
Yeah. I don't know. What do they, I mean, what about UK at the moment? I mean, are they talking what kind of, because it's not a large country either. I can't imagine you guys have a whole lot stockpiled.
No, the UK is less vulnerable because they can import it from the States. It's more expensive, but they can
Oh,
import it from Africa, some African states without going through the Strait of Hormuz. So there are other alternatives. The alternatives, they are more expensive, and that's reflected in the prices, but you know you can still find it quite easily, no problem. But it's
okay.
it's a problem for big buyers, like the airlines. It's creating problems, as Eric was saying before. Like many big airlines have cut thousands of flights already for the summer. But simply they don't know if they can get the jet fuel to
Yeah.
power the planes.
Oh yeah, I
So
would say jet fill's the other one that's
yeah, yeah,
that's on tenterhooks to be fair. Yeah.
yeah. So
So,
if you want to go anywhere, just go quickly. And if you're hoping to come
well,
back,
hopefully
Eric,
you can get home.
yeah, when they say bring a bike, bring a bike. Eric, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I heard something else which is scary because there's a lot of fertilizer coming through the Straits of Hormuz. And if there is no fertilizer, that could end up in a starvation. There's a whole lot less production without the fertilizer. The yield is a lot less. And that is a big problem. One does not talk about it.
Fair enough, but actually, I don't know. It could be a blessing in disguise, the way I see, because yeah, I know it's going to be less, and we all see, if you go to the supermarket and you see the difference between, normal wet fertilizer you use and the price of those foods, and the price of the foods that are grown without fertilizers, like organic food, which is like, again, a lot more expensive. But is it actually a bad thing?
Yeah, but
If
you
we are
and I, look,
forced.
we can both buy it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Not everybody is as fortunate, and the majority of the people is not. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, but then, I don't know, maybe I see things slightly differently, okay? Because I've been in both positions. I've been in a position where, we're going shopping every week with, many years ago with a very, very tight budget. And you can live on a very low budget if you are consciously doing it. I see often is that what they call here in the UK is almost like the economic economic ghettos, kind of where they are concentrated people that have lower wages, and they pretty much like waste all those wages in generally just like because they don't cook at home or something like that. So they buy a lot of like takeaway food. There's price, so to make it affordable for them to buy, go in and instead of cooking at home, you go and buy McDonald's for everybody, or fried foods and stuff like that. That doesn't then causes other problems. But if you were forced, because even that became not a possibility for you, and you were forced to go and live and go and buy what you can afford, and you'd be surprised that it would be creating an improvement in lifestyle for a lot of people, rather than a thinking of all say starvation, because people wouldn't starve at the end of the day. They're just thinking, okay, where do I find my next meal is not going to be, I can't afford McDonald's. What then? And then they need to rethink about their habits to do it, because I mean, obviously I come from Italy. Everybody knows what they talk about, the Mediterranean diets has been so popular across the world. But traditionally, Mediterranean diet is a poor diet. It's poor diet, and you cook everything that is available. You don't throw anything away. And there would be why were the people in the Mediterranean said to have longer lifestyle and everything else? Because they didn't have any they didn't have any pretty much animal products to eat. Most of it is based on vegetables and whatever you can find. So there are some wonderful dishes across the world that have been developed because they had nothing else to eat. So they had to make it palatable.
Yeah, but look, you grew up in an Italian family, and they live completely different. I don't think those people in England, when you talk about people in London, they cannot cook. They have not learned that. They have not gone through easy times. But I was more thinking of people like in Africa and Asia. If there's no food supply, and then it's tough, because like I was in Asia for some time. They have 3 times rice a day. In other countries, they have 3 times corn a day, and that is there's no variety. But they need 2 times at least. That's what I meant. Sorry.
No, I know what you're saying, but there are lots of projects where they are, because basically this reliance on high fertilizers, a high amount of fertilizer, is destroying the substrates. And there have been many examples where they have now managed to recoup vast areas from the desert by using traditional farming methods. And they doing especially in Africa, where the Sahara has extended in areas that were previously green, and they've been subjected to intensive farming methods. So basically, they destroyed everything, and now they started to find traditional ways of collecting or just planting things so that they can rely on rainfall, even if it doesn't, because when it comes, it's very strong, and they can't keep it. So that's the reason why. But having digging special trenches to keep the water allows them to start growing some of the hardier crops, and when those grow and provide then humidity and shadow for other things to grow, then they can grow other things. And so they started to reclaim a lot of the areas they are desertified over the year, and they've done the same in China in many places. So I don't see such a huge problem connected to fertilizer. I can see, if anything, is like it's something that very quickly, when when it's not possible to use them, you circle back to other methods that would long term would be a lot more sustainable.
Yeah, it's more the short-term effect. I know
Yeah.
those projects in Ethiopia, and I know what they do in China. It's fantastic, and that would be the right way. You're right.
At the end of the day, we can only sustain what the earth that we live in will be able to maintain. So at the end of the day, if there are too many people in one area that cannot be sustained because there isn't enough food, people will need to disperse and go in other areas where they can survive. And it's nature. at the end of the day. Anyway, we digressed, going kind of like away from the crypto hour, talking about other subject, but it's still interesting. But let's see if any of you guys, Jonathan, Archie, I think is Utan and Aaron, do you have anything that you want to contribute, or any news, Jonathan, that you've come across? You can like without going too deep into what Charles Hoskinson is
Yeah.
is talking about, but kind of like a more like wide.
Well, yeah. So on your discussion around fertilizer and developing nations, I liked the fact that some of the projects, like, so Charles is part of it. The battle on Cardano around health of projects, and everyone's really feeling the pinch. Projects are feeling squeezed. The treasury's open for bids. Everyone's putting in proposals, um, and uh, and there's sort of tension between project managers and residents like that. In the background, there's this one project called Empower, EMPOWA, who develop. They offer sort of mortgages for property developers and build to buy schemes in developing nations, Mozambique, and a couple others, I think, now as well. They're a crypto-backed project, so they launched a token that would be used as the collateral for all these mortgages. Been running for five years, something like that now. And in the meantime, they just kept building and kept going. And they had what they do is they've got their token out there, and then they have these NFTs, which are like, if you're a token holder, you can buy these NFTs, and that will represent your commitment to the ecosystem for a year. And in return for that, you get 11% APR on your token. And so they've had a series of NFT sales this last month because the property development cycle has come around again. They need more mortgages being let out, and they've had three sales. I think it's three sales now, and they've sold out within 15 minutes each time.
Wow.
That was to their special like closed community, and then to the public as well. And they've sold outside in 50 minutes. And so they've raised, I can't remember how much it is now, but hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in the space of minutes, which shows the appetite for sensibly thought out projects that have an ethical mindset, that are ignoring the noise, and they've actually got utility, and they're providing real financial products to somebody who's desperate for it. Like they got stats on Mozambique that's like only 7% of the whole of Mozambique can actually afford mortgages or actually have mortgages, because they don't have any capital flowing around to be able to afford to build. And so it means you have to be in that top 7% to have the chance of getting a mortgage. And then when you do get a mortgage from the traditional finance sector, you're paying 30% APR on on your mortgage. And so this product comes in, Empower. They offer mortgages much more sensible rate. Like I think it's still high compared to our Western ones, but it's like 12, 15%, something like that. But they're getting property developers moving in. They're getting young professionals, doctors, teachers, the core of society being able to afford build to buy schemes, and it's working. So that's real encouragement for me that we need more solutions like that, where we've actually taken the power out of the hands of the warring nations, put it into the hands of the individuals. The whole blockchain, Bitcoin ethos is decentralized, bring the money out into the edges. And that was the encouraging thing to me, was be able to see this project continue on when we've got, the other projects struggling, like the biggest NFT platform for pretty pictures and videos is JPEG Store on Cardano. And that sadly had to close its doors because it hasn't been able to see itself through the bear market. And that was one of the biggest transaction builders on the network, but they haven't made it. Whereas this small little side project niche, building out, real world assets is thriving. So yeah, it was encouraging. It made me think, yeah, there is value and worth in amongst all this noise that we'll see, bear out long term you know, where the value is, that's where you get long-term survivability. So yeah, that was encouraging. Thought it was
Yeah,
worth
and that's,
sharing.
I think it's interesting because I said that they haven't had any sort of large investors or
No
it's all
VC
been like
money.
small, you know, small investors, and they built from that strength, and they offered a service that that nobody else was offering before. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
making again,
Yeah.
taking away the intermediary again, and allowed the people that don't have access to a financial system to then participate. And you can see that eventually, even I think the Charles Hoskinson's company has done a lot with microfinance
Yeah.
themselves in Africa in particular,
Yeah.
and it's been amazing. What actually, when you go to the area that nobody else will touch, that not only you are doing a service for good, but also there is a lot of profit there as well to be made.
Mhm.
You know, um,
Yes, project RealFi
mm,
is coming soon, and they've been building for years, but they're about to make some big announcements apparently. So I think they've got a stable coin coming out that will be based on you know, developing nations and microfinance. So actually, you could get good yield on your stable coin based on providing collateral for, you know, small businesses to thrive in nations. And that's where the innovation really lies in humanity, is when you are desperate, you figure out how to get around your lack of fertilizer supply. Um,
mm,
with the same thing with this, if you provide someone with money to buy a peanut butter making machine, they will make peanut butter and it'll do really well. Um,
Yeah.
and RealFi, Empower,
Yeah.
these are the companies that I really like to see.
Yeah.
Um, I'll
Now,
drop the
I think
links.
micro enterprise for years has done really well. Like a lot of them have done it like in African nations with women who are trying to raise kids. And so they end up, one gets a little bit going, and then the whole community starts to benefit, and then they're paying the money back as they go. And so it just, I think the synergy is there because they're really motivated. It's not just money, it's usually survival. Yeah, and it's been very, 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 very successful. Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, yeah.
there was another example in Cardano with we call the World Mobile service, where they're putting basically mobile masts in places that were not served um, by communication providers because there wasn't enough in them, for them to actually make money. And there was an example in a fishing village. I can't remember what country that was. I think it was Zanzibar, if
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think it might
wrong.
be. Yeah.
So just because they installed one of these mobile masts that also is powered by electricity, we then had is a village that didn't have electricity. So by just having the access to electricity, they were able to then connect to the internet and sell their fish directly to the customers without it. So could get more than double the money they were selling the fish for, because they cut out the intermediaries. They could get directly the orders directly from the wholesaler that wanted their fish, rather than using somebody that would go from village to village, pay them really pittance for their catch, and then sell it for a big profit, having really made not much of an effort. So all those little things, that can make a huge difference. Sometimes just having access to the internet and being able to communicate, open a whole new market for like a fishing village.
Mhm.
Just incredible. Incredible. And there are things that normally that we don't see, we don't talk about, because in the developed world, we complain if the kind of like the Wi-Fi connection is not strong enough on a phone and we can't play our games or something like this, where for them it's a matter of life or death. It's yeah, it's incredible. It's nice to see somebody that can first of all dream about these projects, and then there's enough interest in the community to make them become a reality, even without sugar daddies, that bankroll them, and simply with community interest and participation is which is possible through crypto. This is the real revolution that's happening.
Yeah, talking about fuel crisis again, being from Nepal, back home, people are really suffering because they cook their food with a gas cylinder, and we get leftover from like from India, so it's a landlocked country. So we get all of gas in cylinder. Once India have used up, the rest goes to Nepal. So at this moment, people are queuing up for a cylinder, and they're sort of like going back to wood to cook food and stuff like that. Especially in cities, really, really issue. Yeah.
Yeah, just amazing to think about this. And so how are they dealing now with this scarcity? What are they doing?
Yeah, so they're now burning wood to cook food and
And,
stuff like that. Yeah.
They cut all the forests down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in a remote area in Asia recently, and the guide who showed me some of the villages, he was living in a village with his parents where there's no electricity and no internet. And he wanted to start his little village, his trekking village. So he had to move to an area where he had internet connection, and so he can do that. We are very fortunate, and we complaining on a very, very high level. And what Jaya says, not Jaya, sorry,
Mutan.
is saying in Nepal, those people where I was in Southeast Asia, they have no petrol, and they need petrol to go to their fields, to run their fields, and there is no transport. They only have their scooter, their motorbikes, and they rely on that. And there is no petrol. I was in many villages where the petrol stations are closed, so they have to walk to their fields, which are maybe half an hour away by motorbike. We are complaining, or we are on a very high level. We can even fly, but those people are really suffering.
well, yeah, and that's sobering thought.
Sorry.
No, why sorry? So this is what we're talking about is, it's real world problems, and if we don't, the point is, if you don't bring them to anybody attention, nobody does anything about them, So this is what we were talking about. Some of these initiatives are come from people observing, situation like this and trying to make a difference. And I think we all we got a vehicle to be able to make a difference ourselves, because we can support some of these projects. I'm not aware of any at the moment in Nepal, for example, but I am quite sure that if you look enough, there will be some budding project in some community that is active in Nepal that can that you could collaborate with. So this is the interesting part about what crypto is doing, is that empowering people that normally would be economically insignificant to do something that can then gather pace by getting other people involved. So yeah, keep it in mind, guys, because I think these things are developing all the time, and it making it easier to if you got an idea that can make a difference, it's now not impossible to make it become a reality. It's very, very possible. Just connecting to the right people and putting the right action in place. Okay, so if no, it's 10 o'clock now, so I'll say it's been an interesting conversation today. And I welcome all this conversation. Obviously, when we'll always keep an eye on crypto, but it's more than just remind everybody that it's more than token X going up 10% or down 10%. It's not why we're doing this every week. It's because of kind of opening people's eye on what is achievable, what is possible through this technology, and being there. Hello, Aaron. Nice to see you. It's right at the end. You make an appearance to say yes. I was
Great
there
discussion.
I don't
But,
like to say goodbye without showing
that's
my
all right.
face.
So yeah, hopefully I'll see you all next weekend, and have a fantastic weekend. And Jonathan, I'm going to send you a couple of messages on Discord for later. So we talk separately. But have a fantastic weekend, and I recommend everybody to go and follow Jonathan in his Cardano Q&A session that follows pretty much this. And as usual, the link is will be in the chat, and it is in the chat right now. And also, just have a look at the links that Jonathan posted earlier on with Empower and RealFi, because they are real projects. If you're interested, you could participate even now. So the first step is see what's there. If it's not for you right now, just still mark it so that you can go back to it at a future date, and and there are going to be a lot more like that, but this is just to whet your appetite. Okay, so have a fantastic weekend, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thank
Bye,
Thanks, Luca.
everyone.
you.
Bye-bye.